The cold stone bit through my thin robes, dragging me from the darkness with a jolt so violent I gasped for air. My lungs burned. My limbs were too small, too weak. I stared at my hands, tiny, unblemished, the hands of a girl who had not yet starved to death in a frozen gutter. The scent of incense and old wood filled my nose. I knew this place. The ancestral hall. The day I had made the worst mistake of my life. You will get up this instant, Linhui. I have no time for your theatrics. Her voice. Honey laced with poison. Lady Wu. My stepmother. I lifted my head slowly, forcing my face into the mask of a frightened child. She stood over me, silk robes flowing, her painted lips curved in that sickly sweet smile I had once believed was kindness. Behind her, the afternoon sun streamed through the lattice windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Shadows that looked like grasping hands. I asked you a question, she said, her tone sharpening. The inventory of your mother's dowry must be completed today. Your father is away, and I will not have this household fall into chaos, because you cannot manage a simple task. My mother's dowry. The jade vault. The land deeds. The gold ingots. The treasures she had left me as my only shield against the world. In my first life, I had handed her the keys with trembling hands. I had believed her tears. I had believed her lies about keeping the inheritance safe. 3 years later, she had stripped the estate bare. My father had died, poisoned, I now knew, and I had been cast out like garbage. I had died alone in an alley, my stomach empty, my heart colder than the snow that buried me. I was not that girl anymore. I pushed myself upright, my knees wobbling. Stepmother, I whispered, letting my voice crack like fragile glass. Please. I am so unwell. I can barely stand. Perhaps we should wait until father returns. Her eyes narrowed. She was not used to resistance. Nonsense. You are young and strong. A little headache will not stop you from fulfilling your duty. She stepped closer, her silk slippers silent on the polished wood. Your mother entrusted this household to me. If you cannot care for your own affairs, you must let me care for them. It is what she would have wanted. The mention of my mother was a knife twisting in my gut. My mother, who had died gently in her sleep, who had held my face in her hands and told me to be brave. My mother, whose legacy I had squandered like a fool. I lowered my gaze, let my shoulders slump. You're right, I said, my voice barely audible. I have been so foolish with worry. Perhaps it is best if you oversee the inventory today. I can barely keep my eyes open. The greed that flickered in her eyes was unmistakable. She thought she had won. She thought I was the same weak lamb she had slaughtered once before. Of course, dear, she cooed, reaching down to pat my head. Her fingers felt like spiders. You rest. I will have the servants bring you ginger tea. And bring me the keys to the vault. The lock is so old, I worry it might jam if we wait too long. I shook my head, my expression carefully blank. I cannot, stepmother. Her hand froze midair. Cannot, what do you mean, cannot, I lost them. The silence that followed was so absolute I could hear the distant chirping of sparrows in the garden. Lady Wu's face went pale, then flushed a deep, mottled red. You what? I let my lower lip tremble. I was playing in the garden yesterday by the koi pond. I must have dropped them. I have been so afraid to tell you. Please do not be angry. Her composure shattered. You foolish, useless girl, she hissed, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. Do you have any idea what is in that vault? Do you know the worth of your mother's? She stopped herself, teeth snapping shut. She had almost said too much. I blinked up at her with wide, innocent eyes. Worth, is it very valuable? I always thought it was just old trinkets and some rolls of silk. Mother never showed me anything special. She took a long, shuddering breath. The mask of the doting stepmother slid back into place, but I could see the fury simmering beneath. It is your legacy, Linhui. We must find those keys immediately. She turned and snapped at her personal maid. Search the garden. Dredge the pond if you must. Find those keys. The maid scurried away. Lady Wu turned back to me, her smile tight as a drawn bowstring. Go to your room and rest, dear. I will handle everything. I curtsied, my body swaying as if I might faint. Thank you, stepmother. You are so kind. I walked slowly, deliberately, toward my chamber. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. The keys were not lost. They were hidden in the hollow brick beneath the incense burner in my mother's study, a secret she had shown me when I was 6 years old. A secret I had remembered only as I lay dying, too late to save myself. This time, I would not be too late. I had just reached the corridor outside my room when a heavy hand slammed against the wall beside my head. I flinched, my body reacting before my mind caught up. Lin Bao. My half-brother. Lady Wu's son. A brute of 18 with a cruel mouth and emptier eyes. Lost the keys, did you? He leaned in close, his breath sour with wine. You're even more pathetic than I thought. Mother always said you were useless, but I didn't believe her until now. I forced my voice to stay small, frightened. I am sorry, brother. I did not mean to cause trouble. He laughed, a harsh, barking sound. Sorry, you're always sorry. That's all you ever say. Sorry, brother. Sorry, stepmother. Sorry for existing. He grabbed my chin, his fingers digging into my jaw. You know, I always wondered why mother bothered keeping you around. You're not even worth the rice you eat. In my first life, he had said the same words to me as he dragged me by the hair out of the manor gates. I had wept then. I had begged. I did not beg now. I looked up at him, my eyes still wide, my voice still trembling. Brother, I know you are angry with me. But please, do not hurt me. I will stay out of your way. I promise. His grip tightened. You think that's enough? You think hiding in your room will make me forget you exist? I should beat some sense into you right now, teach you to be less of a burden. I let out a soft, choked sob, loud enough to carry down the corridor. Please. I will do anything. Just do not hit me again. A servant's head appeared around the corner. Then another. Lin Bao released me instantly, stepping back, his face twisting with rage. He could not afford witnesses. Not when his mother's schemes depended on keeping up appearances. I stumbled away from him, clutching my throat, letting the servants see the red marks his fingers had left on my skin. I am going to my room, I whispered. I will not cause any more trouble. He glared at me, murder in his eyes, but he could not touch me now. Not with the servants watching. I scurried into my chamber and closed the door. My legs gave out. I slid down the wood, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The fear was real. The hatred was real. But so was the victory. I had seen the terror in his eyes when I mentioned the jade he had been stealing from the temple offerings. I had not used that knowledge yet, not fully, but I had planted the seed. He would be watching his back now. He would be afraid of me. Good. Let him be afraid. I waited until the moon rose high, casting silver light through my window. The household was silent. Lady Wu had exhausted herself searching the garden. The servants were asleep. I crept through the dark corridors, my bare feet silent on the cold wood. My mother's study was dusty, untouched since her death. I knelt before the incense burner, my fingers tracing the edges of the loose brick. It came free with a soft scrape. I reached inside and my fingertips brushed against cold metal. The keys. I pulled them out and clutched them to my chest. They were heavy. Solid. Real. I did not go to the vault that night. That would be too obvious. Instead, I had a different plan, one I had been crafting since the moment I woke up on that cold stone floor. In my previous life, Lady Wu had destroyed the dowry registry, the official document filed with the magistrate that proved ownership. Without it, she had been able to rewrite history, to claim my mother's treasures as her own. This time, I would make sure she could never touch that document. I slipped out of the manor through the servants' gate, a gray robe pulled over my nightclothes. The streets were empty, lit only by the pale moon. I moved quickly, my heart pounding with every shadow that shifted. The magistrate's office loomed before me, grand and silent. I knocked on the side door, soft and insistent, until a nervous clerk appeared. He was young, with ink-stained fingers and tired eyes. He blinked at me in confusion. Please, I said, pressing a pouch of silver into his hand before he could speak. I am Lin Hui, daughter of the first wife of the Lin family. I need a copy of my mother's dowry registry. The original is sealed in your archives. I know you can access it. He stared at the silver, then at me. Miss, this is highly irregular. The registry is a sealed document. Only the head of the household can request, please, I said again, letting my voice crack with desperation. My stepmother is trying to steal everything my mother left me. If I do not have proof, I will lose everything. I will be left with nothing. I paused, letting the weight of the words sink in. I will be destitute. I will die. Something in my eyes must have convinced him. He looked at the silver, then back at my face and sighed. Wait here. Do not move. He disappeared into the darkness of the archives. I stood there, my breath held, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. Every second felt like an eternity. If I was caught, if Lady Wu found out, I would be ruined. But I was already ruined once. I had nothing left to lose. The clerk returned with a thick scroll tied with a red ribbon. He pressed it into my hands. This is the transcribed copy filed when your mother married. It details every item, every deed, every ingot. It is not the original, but it is official. It will hold up in court. I clutched it to my chest, tears burning in my eyes. Thank you. I will never forget this. Just be careful, miss, he said, his voice low. Your stepmother has friends in high places. If she finds out you have this, she will not find out, I said. I will make sure of that. I returned to the manor as the first hints of dawn painted the sky pink. I hid the scroll in the same hollow brick, next to the keys. The vault remained locked. Lady Wu remained furious. And I remained the weak, pathetic orphan who had lost her inheritance. But I had my weapons now. The keys. The registry. The knowledge of every sin Lady Wu and her son had committed. I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling, my heart racing with a strange, fierce joy. The game had begun. And this time, I was not the pawn. I was the player. The sun rose over the manor, and I smiled. Let her come. Let her scheme. Let her think she was winning. I was ready. The morning came too fast. I had barely closed my eyes when the sound of raised voices pulled me from a restless sleep. Lady Wu was screaming at the servants again, her voice shrill and sharp as broken glass. I lay still for a moment, listening, letting the sound wash over me like a familiar nightmare. Then I heard my father's voice. He was home. A day early. I sat up so fast the room spun around me. This was not how it happened in my first life. In my first life, he had returned a week later after Lady Wu had already emptied the vault and replaced the jewels with painted stones. He had believed her lies about thieves breaking in. He had believed her tears. I would not let that happen again. I dressed quickly, choosing a plain blue robe that made me look younger, smaller. I pulled my hair back loosely, letting a few strands fall across my face. I needed to look fragile, pitiful, the kind of daughter a guilty father would rush to protect. The courtyard was chaos. Servants rushed back and forth, carrying trunks and baskets. Lady Wu stood at the center, her hands clasped in front of her, her face a mask of carefully composed worry. And there, at the gate, was my father, Lin Chong, a tall man with graying temples and tired eyes. He looked older than I remembered. More fragile. Father. I called out, letting my voice crack with relief. I ran toward him, my steps unsteady, and threw myself at his feet. You're home. I am so glad you're home. He looked down at me, surprise flickering across his face. Huir, what is all this commotion? Why are you on the ground? Before I could answer, Lady Wu glided forward. Husband, you must not worry. There has been a small incident, but I have everything under control. She shot me a warning look, her eyes cold as winter stones. Your daughter misplaced the keys to the vault. The servants have been searching for 2 days. I have been trying to calm the household, but misplaced, my father's brow furrowed. The vault. The one containing your mother's dowry. I clutched his robes and let my shoulders shake. I am so sorry, father. I have been so ill. My head aches constantly. I was playing in the garden and I dropped them. I did not mean to cause so much trouble. Stepmother has been so angry with me. I have not been angry, Lady Wu said quickly, her voice smooth as silk. I have been concerned. The vault holds invaluable treasures. Your father entrusted this household to me, and I take that responsibility seriously. But your daughter has been uncooperative, refusing to help with the inventory, hiding in her room. I looked up at my father with wide, tear-filled eyes. I was not hiding. I was too weak to stand. Stepmother, I told you I was unwell. Please, father, do not be angry with me. I will find the keys. I will search every corner of the garden myself if I must. My father's expression softened. He had always been weak when it came to my tears. There is no need for that, he said, pulling me gently to my feet. We will have new keys forged. The vault will be opened by the end of the week. And in the meantime, we will conduct a proper inventory of every item inside, with witnesses present. Lady Wu's face went pale. Husband, that is not necessary. I have already begun the inventory. It would be inefficient to start over. Efficiency is not my concern, my father said, his voice firm. My concern is my daughter's inheritance. Huya will oversee the inventory herself, with the chief steward assisting. You will have no part in it. The silence that followed was so absolute I could hear my own heartbeat. Lady Wu's smile did not waver, but I saw her hands clench at her sides. Of course, husband. Whatever you think is best. She turned to me, her eyes promising vengeance. I am so glad you will be taking responsibility for your own affairs, Huir. It is what your mother would have wanted. I bowed my head. Thank you, stepmother. You have always been so kind to me. The words tasted like ash in my mouth, but I forced them out. I had to maintain the mask. I had to let her think I was still the weak, grateful child she could manipulate. That afternoon, the chief steward, an old, loyal man named Zhang, arrived with the new keys. He had served my mother since before I was born, and he had never trusted Lady Wu. In my first life, he had been dismissed on false charges of theft before the vault was opened. This time, I had made sure he stayed. Miss Lin, he said, bowing low. Your father has instructed me to assist you with the inventory. I have a list of every item in the vault, as recorded by your mother's lady-in-waiting before her death. We will match each item against the list and verify its condition. I nodded, my heart pounding. Thank you, Steward Zhang. I am grateful for your help. The vault was hidden behind a false wall in my mother's old bedchamber. I had not entered it since her death. The memory of her, lying pale and still on the bed, was still too raw. But I pushed the grief aside. There was no time for mourning. There was only survival. Steward Zhang inserted the new key into the lock. The mechanism clicked and groaned, and the heavy iron door swung open. I stepped inside, and my breath caught in my throat. The vault was enormous. Shelves lined every wall, stacked with jade figurines, gold ingots, silk rolls, and wooden chests carved with intricate patterns. At the center sat my mother's jewelry box, a lacquered red chest inlaid with mother-of-pearl. It contained her wedding crown, her hairpins, her jade bracelets. The things she had worn on her happiest day. I reached for it, my fingers trembling. I lifted the lid. The jewelry was gone. I stared at the empty box, my mind blank with shock. The crown, the hairpins, the bracelets. They were all gone. The chest was filled with nothing but a single piece of white silk, folded neatly at the bottom. Miss Lin, Steward Zhang's voice was concerned. Is something wrong? I forced my face into a calm expression. No, nothing. I was simply remembering. I closed the box and set it aside. I had to think. Someone had been in here. Someone had taken the most valuable pieces before the vault was even opened in my first life. But who? Lady Wu had not had the keys. I had given her those keys myself, later, in my foolish trust. How could she have accessed the vault before then? The answer hit me like a physical blow. Lin Bao. My half-brother was a thief. He had been stealing jade from the temple offerings and selling them at the East Market. If he knew about the vault, if Lady Wu had told him about its contents, he could have broken in weeks ago. He had access to the household. He had access to the bedchamber. He could have slipped in and out without anyone noticing. I turned to Steward Zhang, my voice steady. Please continue the inventory. Note down every item that is present or missing. I need to know the full extent of what we have. The steward bowed and began his work. I left the vault and walked through the manor, my mind racing. The stolen jewelry would be sold. If it was sold, it might already be gone forever. But if it was still in the East Market, I might be able to find it before it was melted down or shipped away. I slipped out of the manor through the servants' gate again, wearing the same gray robe I had worn the night before. The East Market was crowded with merchants and shoppers, the air thick with the smell of spices and frying oil. I moved through the crowd, my eyes scanning the pawn shops and jade stalls. It took me 2 hours, but I found him. A fat, sweaty merchant with gold rings on every finger, sitting behind a counter piled with second-hand goods. I saw the hairpins first, the jade dragon pins my mother had worn on her wedding day, displayed in a glass case like common trinkets. I walked up to the counter and smiled. "Those are beautiful," I said, pointing at the pins. "How much?" The merchant looked me up and down, assessing my gray robes. "They are not for sale," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "They are already promised to a buyer." "A buyer from the Lin household, perhaps," I said, keeping my voice light. "My stepbrother, Lin Bao." The merchant's face went pale. "I do not know what you are talking about. Please leave my shop." I leaned in close, dropping my voice to a whisper. "Those hairpins belong to my mother. They were stolen from her vault. If you do not return them to me, I will go to the magistrate and report you for receiving stolen goods." "Do you think you can afford that kind of scandal?" The merchant's eyes darted around the shop. He was sweating now. "I do not know who you are, but you cannot threaten me." I pulled the scroll from my robe, the dowry registry, and let him see the seal. "This is proof of ownership. I have the magistrate's seal. If I take this to him, he will send officers to your shop. You will lose everything. Your reputation. Your license. Your life." He stared at the scroll, his face growing whiter with every word. Then he let out a heavy, defeated sigh. "Fine. Take them. Take all of it. Just do not tell anyone where you got them." He opened the glass case and handed me the hairpins. Then, to my surprise, he reached under the counter and produced a small wooden box. "This too," he said, shoving it into my hands. "The boy brought it in yesterday. I was supposed to sell it to a buyer in the capital. You are saving me the trouble of dealing with a stinking, grasping mother." I opened the box and found my mother's jade bracelet, the one she had worn every day of her life, the one I had held as she died. It was warm in my hands, as if it still held her memory. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You have done a good thing today." He grunted and turned away. I left the shop, clutching the box and the hairpins to my chest. The victory tasted sweet, but I knew it was only temporary. Lin Bao would notice the missing items. He would panic. And when he panicked, he would run to his mother. I had to move faster. I returned to the manor just as the sun was setting. The household was quiet, but I could feel the tension in the air, like the moment before a thunderstorm. I went straight to my father's study and knocked on the door. "Enter," he called. I stepped inside, my heart racing. My father was seated at his desk, a stack of ledgers before him. He looked up as I entered, his expression softening. "Huir. Is something wrong, father?" I said, my voice steady. "I need to tell you something about stepmother." And Lin Bao. "You will not believe it at first. But I have proof." I placed the box and the hairpins on his desk. "These were stolen from mother's vault. I found them in the East Market." The merchant said Lin Bao brought them in. "He has been selling mother's treasures for weeks." My father stared at the jewelry. Then, slowly, he lifted his gaze to meet mine. "You are accusing your brother of theft." "I am telling you the truth," I said. "And I have more. I have witnesses. I have ledgers. I have proof that stepmother has been embezzling household funds to pay her brother's gambling debts. I have proof that she planned to sell the land deeds and leave me destitute. She is not the loving wife you think she is. She is a thief. And I can prove every word." His face went pale, then red. "If this is true, you should have come to me sooner. Why did you wait?" I lowered my gaze. "Because I was afraid. I have been afraid for a long time. She made me believe that no one would listen to me, that I was worthless, that I deserved to be treated like garbage." I looked up, meeting his eyes. "But I am not afraid anymore. I will not let her destroy this family." My father was silent for a long time. Then he rose from his chair and walked to the window, staring out at the garden. "I have been blind," he said, his voice heavy. "I have been a fool. I trusted her because she made me feel needed. She made me feel like a man again." He turned to face me. "I will call a family meeting tomorrow morning. You will present your evidence. And if it is true. It is true, I said. He nodded. Then she will answer for her crimes. I left his study and walked back to my chamber, my legs shaking. Tomorrow, the war would begin in earnest. Lady Wu would fight back. She would lie, she would manipulate, she would do whatever it took to protect herself. But I was ready. I had survived death once. I would survive this too. I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding with anticipation. The game was almost over. The final move was coming. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that I would win. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I dreamed of my mother's smile. The family meeting was called at dawn. I had not slept. My body ached with exhaustion, but my mind was sharp as a blade. I dressed in my finest robe, a deep green silk embroidered with silver flowers, the last gift my mother had given me before she died. I wanted Lady Wu to see me. I wanted her to see what she had tried to destroy. The main hall was filled with tension. My father sat at the head of the table, his face carved from stone. Steward Zhang stood behind him, holding the inventory ledgers. The household elders, distant uncles and cousins who rarely visited, had been summoned. They sat in a row along the wall, their faces curious and wary. And then there was Lady Wu. She sat at my father's right hand, her silk robes immaculate, her hair perfectly pinned. Her smile was serene, but I saw the tightness around her eyes. She knew something was coming. She did not know what. Lin Bao stood behind her, his arms crossed, his jaw tight. He looked like a caged animal, ready to lash out. I met his eyes for a brief moment, and I saw the flicker of fear there. Good. Let him be afraid. Huir, my father said, his voice carrying through the hall. You requested this meeting. You may speak. I stepped forward, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. Thank you, Father. I have called this meeting to address a matter of grave importance. The theft of my mother's dowry. Lady Wu's smile did not waver. Theft, husband, I do not understand. The vault has been sealed for years. The keys were misplaced, and now we have new ones. There has been no theft. The vault is sealed now, I said, turning to face her. But it was not sealed before. Someone has been entering the vault for weeks, removing items, and selling them in the East Market. I held up the jade hairpins and the bracelet. These were found in a pawn shop yesterday. The merchant identified the seller as Lin Bao. The hall erupted in whispers. Lin Bao's face went white. That is a lie, he shouted, stepping forward. I have never seen those things in my life. Liar, I said, my voice cold. The merchant described you perfectly. He remembered you because you have been selling stolen goods to him for months. Jade figurines from the temple offerings. Silk rolls from the household stores. And now, my mother's jewelry. Lady Wu rose from her seat, her composure cracking. This is absurd. You are slandering your own brother. You are a jealous, spiteful girl who cannot stand to see anyone else inherit what you believe is rightfully yours. I turned to face her, and I let her see the truth in my eyes. I am not jealous, stepmother. I am not spiteful. I am simply telling the truth. And the truth is that you have been stealing from this household for years. I pulled the dowry registry from my sleeve and unrolled it across the table. This is the official record of my mother's dowry, filed with the magistrate. Every item is listed here. And I have Steward Zhang's inventory, which shows that half of those items are now missing. My father leaned forward, studying the registry. His face grew darker with every line he read. Where did you get this? He asked, his voice low. I obtained a copy from the magistrate's office, I said. I knew that stepmother would destroy the original if she had the chance. So I made sure I had proof before she could act. Lady Wu's hands were shaking now. Her mask was gone, replaced by pure, naked fury. You are a liar, she hissed, her voice trembling with rage. You have fabricated this evidence. You have conspired with the steward to destroy my reputation. And you, husband, you would believe this child over your own wife. My father looked at her, and I saw something in his eyes that I had never seen before. Doubt. Not doubt of me. Doubt of her. I would believe the truth, he said quietly. And the truth is that your son has been selling temple offerings. The monks complained to me 3 months ago. I dismissed it as a misunderstanding. But now he shook his head. Now I see it was not a misunderstanding at all. Lin Bao's face was ashen. Father, silence, my father said, his voice cracking like a whip. I have heard enough from you. He turned to the elders. I have been a fool. I have trusted a woman who saw me only as a source of wealth and status. I have been blinded by grief and loneliness. But I will not be blind any longer. Lady Wu took a step back, her composure shattering. You cannot do this to me, she said, her voice breaking. I have given you everything. I have borne your children. I have managed your household. You have stolen from my daughter, my father said, his voice rising. You have embezzled funds. You have conspired to destroy my family's legacy. And you have poisoned your own brother's mind. He stopped, his words catching in his throat. I stepped forward. Father, there is more. I have reason to believe that stepmother was planning to poison you as well. The hall went silent. Even the whispers stopped. Lady Wu's face drained of color. That is insane. I found this in her chamber, I said, pulling a small silk pouch from my sleeve. It was filled with a dark, powdery substance I had discovered hidden in her jewelry box. I had it tested by a physician. It is arsenic. A slow-acting poison enough to kill a man in small doses over several months. The same poison that killed. I stopped myself. I could not say it. Not yet. Not here. But my father understood. His face went from pale to gray. The same poison that killed your mother. The room erupted. Lady Wu screamed, lunging at me, her fingers reaching for my throat. Lin Bao grabbed her arm, trying to hold her back, but she was beyond reason. You little viper, she shrieked. You lying, scheming. Steward Zheng stepped between us, his body a solid wall. Guards, he called out. Restrain her. Two servants rushed forward and seized Lady Wu's arms. She struggled, kicking and clawing, her silk robes tearing at the seams. The elders rose from their seats, their faces a mix of horror and disgust. My father stood frozen, staring at the silk pouch in my hand as if it contained the ghost of my mother. Get her out of my sight, my father said, his voice hollow. And take her son with her. I will deal with them later. The servants dragged Lady Wu and Lin Bao from the hall. I watched them go, my heart pounding in my chest. The victory was so close I could taste it. But the words I had spoken about the poison, about my mother, hung in the air like smoke. My father turned to me. Huir, come with me. I followed him to his study. He closed the door behind us and gestured for me to sit. His hands were shaking. His face was haunted. Tell me the truth, he said, his voice barely audible. About your mother. Was she poisoned? I had prepared for this moment. I had rehearsed the words in my head 1,000 times. But now that I was here, looking at my father's shattered face, the words felt heavy and impossible. I do not know for certain, I said carefully. I only know that stepmother had arsenic in her possession. And that mother died suddenly, with no warning, after drinking tea that stepmother prepared for her. I paused, letting the words sink in. But I also know that mother was healthy. She had no illnesses. She had no fevers. She simply went to sleep and never woke up. My father closed his eyes. Tears streamed down his face. I failed her, he whispered. I failed you. I have been so blind, so stupid, father, I said, reaching out to take his hand. You were grieving. You were trying to move forward. Stepmother was clever. She knew exactly how to manipulate you. None of this is your fault. He opened his eyes and looked at me. You are too kind to me, he said. You have been through so much, and you are still kind. I shook my head. I am not kind, father. I am just determined. I am determined to protect what is left of this family. And I am determined to make sure stepmother and Lin Bao never hurt anyone again. He nodded slowly. What do you propose, exile? I said, the word coming out harder than I intended. Send them away. Strip them of their titles and their wealth. Give them enough to survive, but nothing more. They will never be welcome in this household again. And we will go to the magistrate. We will file charges for the theft and for the embezzlement. They will be held accountable. My father stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had finally seen the truth and accepted it. You have your mother's strength, he said. She was the same way. Fierce. Unyielding. She would be proud of you. I bowed my head, hiding the tears that threatened to fall. I hope so, father. I hope so. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Lady Wu and Lin Bao were confined to their chambers while the servants packed their belongings. The household was in chaos, filled with whispers and speculation. I retreated to my mother's study, seeking the only peace I could find. Steward Zhang found me there, standing by the window. Miss Lin, he said, bowing low. The inventory is complete. We have accounted for everything. Most of the missing items have been recovered, thanks to your efforts. The rest can be replaced, I said. What matters is that we have proof. We have the registry. We have the witnesses. We have enough to destroy her. He nodded. Your mother would be very proud of you. I smiled, a genuine smile, the first one I had felt in what seemed like a lifetime. Thank you, Steward Zhang. I could not have done this without you. He bowed again and left me alone with my thoughts. I looked out at the garden, at the koi pond where I had claimed to lose the keys. The water was calm, reflecting the setting sun. It was peaceful, serene. But I could not shake the feeling that the battle was not over. Lady Wu had been defeated. Lin Bao had been exposed. But I knew, with the certainty of a woman who had died once before, that they would not go quietly. They would find a way to fight back. They would find a way to hurt me. I had to be ready. I had to be stronger. I touched the jade bracelet on my wrist, the one I had recovered from the pawn shop. It was still warm, as if my mother's spirit was watching over me. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. Mother, I whispered. I will not let them win. I will protect everything you left me. I will honor your memory. I will be the daughter you always believed I could be. The silence of the study answered me. But I felt something shift inside me, something that felt like hope. The war was not over. But I had won the first battle. And I would win the rest. The sun set over the manor, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. I watched it until the last light faded, and then I walked back to my chamber, my steps steady, my heart strong. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But I was ready for them. I was ready for anything. I lay in my bed and closed my eyes, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I slept without dreaming of death. The morning came with a storm. Not the gentle rain that usually washed over the manor, but a violent tempest that battered the windows and sent the servants scrambling to secure the shutters. I stood by my window, watching the dark clouds roll across the sky, and I felt it in my bones. Something was coming. Something worse than Lady Wu's poison and Lin Bao's greed. I dressed quickly, pulling on a simple gray robe. The fine silk of the previous day felt too heavy now, too much like a costume. I needed to move. I needed to think. The household was still in disarray. Lady Wu and Lin Bao had been confined to their chambers, but my father had not yet decided their fate. He had spent the night in his study, drinking alone. I had heard him pacing until the early hours, his footsteps heavy and uneven on the wooden floor. He was a broken man, and I did not know how to fix him. But I could not afford to wait for him to make a decision. I had seen Lady Wu's eyes as they dragged her away. There was no defeat in them. There was only rage, burning cold and patient. She was already planning her revenge. I had to strike first. I found Steward Zhang in the kitchen, overseeing the preparation of the morning meal. He looked tired, his shoulders hunched with the weight of the past few days. Miss Lin, he said, bowing. You are up early. I could not sleep, I said. There is something I need to discuss with you. Privately. He nodded and led me to a small storage room off the kitchen, away from the servants' ears. The room was filled with sacks of rice and barrels of pickled vegetables. The smell was sharp and earthy, grounding me in the present. I have been thinking, I said, keeping my voice low. Lady Wu will not accept defeat. She will find a way to escape, and when she does, she will come for us. We need to act before she can. Zhang's face grew grim. I have been thinking the same thing. But your father, my father, is paralyzed with grief, I said. He will not act until it is too late. We must act for him. Zhang hesitated. What do you propose, Miss Lin? I want you to go to the magistrate, I said. File the formal complaint. Charge Lady Wu with theft, embezzlement, and attempted murder. Charge Lin Bao with theft and receiving stolen goods. I want the charges filed before the end of the day. I want the magistrate to issue a warrant for their arrest. Zhang's eyes widened. A warrant, Miss Lin, that is a severe step. If the magistrate refuses, or if the charges are not proven, they will be proven, I said. I have the dowry registry. I have the inventory. I have the arsenic. I have the pawn shop merchant's testimony. And I have you, Steward Zhang. You have served this household for 30 years. Your word carries weight. Zhang was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I will go at once. But Miss Lin, you must be careful. Lady Wu has allies in the city. She has been cultivating connections for years. She will not go quietly, and she will not go alone. I had thought of that. It was the one thing that kept me awake at night. Lady Wu had not been idle during her years as the mistress of the household. She had charmed officials, bribed merchants, and built a network of loyal followers who would do anything for her. If she called on them, I could be outmatched. I will be careful, I said. But I will not be afraid. I have been afraid for too long. It ends now. Zhang left through the servants' gate, his robes pulled tight against the wind and rain. I watched him go, and I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. I had done everything I could. Now I had to wait. But waiting was the hardest part. I spent the morning in my mother's study, going through her old letters. They were filled with love and warmth, advice and encouragement. She had been a good woman, a kind woman, and she had been taken from me too soon. I felt the familiar ache of grief, but it was tempered now by something else. Resolve. By midday, the storm had passed, leaving the manor dripping and muddy. I had just finished reading one of my mother's letters when I heard shouting from the courtyard. I ran to the window and looked out. Lady Wu was standing in the courtyard, her silk robes torn and dirty, her hair hanging loose around her shoulders. She was screaming, her voice wild and desperate. Lin Bao stood behind her, his face pale, his hands clenched into fists. They were surrounded by servants, but none of them were moving to stop them. Let me see my husband. Lady Wu shrieked. I demand to see my husband. This is a travesty. I am the mistress of this household. I will not be treated like a common criminal. I ran down the stairs, my heart pounding. The servants parted as I approached, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. I stepped into the courtyard and faced Lady Wu. Stepmother, I said, my voice calm. You are not supposed to be here. You are confined to your chambers. She turned to me, and I saw the madness in her eyes. The mask was gone. The pretense was gone. All that was left was pure, unbridled hatred. You, she hissed. You did this to me. You ruined everything. You are the curse on this household, not me. I am the curse, I laughed, a cold, hollow sound. You poisoned my mother. You stole my inheritance. You tried to destroy my father. And you call me the curse. I did what I had to do, she spat. Your mother was weak. She did not deserve the wealth and power she had. I earned my place in this household. I worked for it. And you are nothing but a pathetic little girl who cannot accept that she lost. I did not lose, I said. I survived. And I will make sure you pay for everything you have done. Lady Wu lunged at me, her fingers reaching for my throat. I stepped back, but she was faster than I expected. Her nails raked across my cheek, drawing blood. I stumbled, and she fell on top of me, her weight pressing me into the mud. The servants rushed forward, pulling her off me. I lay in the dirt, gasping, my face stinging with pain. But I did not cry out. I would not give her the satisfaction. You will regret this, she hissed as the servants dragged her away. You will regret crossing me. I have friends in high places. I will destroy you, Lin Hui. I will take everything you love and burn it to the ground. I watched her go, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. But even as the fear coursed through me, I felt something else. A cold, steely resolve. She was right about one thing. This was not over. But it would end with her defeat, not mine. That evening, my father sent for me. I found him in his study, sitting at his desk with a letter in his hand. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in a single night. Huir, he said, his voice hoarse. I have received news. Lady Wu has been arrested. The magistrate issued a warrant based on Steward Zhang's testimony. She and Lin Bao are in custody. I felt a surge of relief, but it was tempered by caution. That is good news, father. Is it? He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. She will stand trial. She will be convicted. But the scandal will destroy this family. The rumors will follow us for years. The merchants will refuse to do business with us. The officials will look down on us. We will be ruined. We're ruined. I stepped forward and took his hand. We will survive, father. We have survived worse. We have each other. We have the estate. We have the truth. That is enough. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine. You are so strong, he said. How did you become so strong? I did not tell him about the death I had already lived. I did not tell him about the cold gutter, the empty stomach, the darkness that had swallowed me whole. I just squeezed his hand and smiled. I learned from the best, father. Mother taught me that strength is not about never falling. It is about always getting back up. He nodded slowly, a flicker of hope returning to his eyes. Then we will get back up. Together. The next day, I went to the magistrate's office to testify. The courtroom was filled with curious onlookers, their faces a mix of shock and morbid fascination. Lady Wu stood in the defendant's box, her hair disheveled, her robes in tatters. Lin Bao stood beside her, his face pale, his eyes hollow. The magistrate was a stern-faced man with a sharp gaze. He read the charges aloud, his voice echoing through the courtroom. Theft. Embezzlement. Receiving stolen goods. Attempted murder. Lady Wu protested loudly, her voice shrill and defiant. These charges are fabricated. The girl is a liar. She is trying to destroy me because she is jealous of my position. Jealous, I stepped forward, my voice steady. I am not jealous of you, stepmother. I am disgusted by you. I have proof of every charge. I have witnesses. I have documents. And I have the arsenic that you kept hidden in your jewelry box. The magistrate raised an eyebrow. You have the poison. I nodded and produced the silk pouch. This was found in stepmother's chambers. A physician confirmed it to be arsenic. She intended to use it on my father, just as she used it on my mother. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Lady Wu screamed, her voice cracking with fury. That is a lie. She planted it there. She is trying to frame me. The magistrate slammed his gavel. Silence. The court will now hear the evidence. He gestured for Steward Zhang to approach. Zhang stood before the magistrate, his voice steady and clear. I have served the Lin household for 30 years. I was present when the first wife died. I saw the symptoms, the sudden weakness, the pallor, the confusion. I suspected poison, but I had no proof. When Miss Lin showed me the arsenic, everything fell into place. The magistrate turned to me. And you, Miss Lin, when did you discover the poison? I found it 3 days ago, I said. I was searching stepmother's chambers for evidence of the theft. I found the arsenic hidden in her jewelry box, wrapped in silk. Lady Wu laughed, a desperate, manic sound. This is absurd. You have no proof that I intended to use it. I could have been keeping it for any reason. Vermin. Pests. It is not a crime to keep poison. It is a crime to use it, the magistrate said coldly. And there is strong evidence that you did. The first wife's death was never properly investigated. But I will order an exhumation. If traces of arsenic are found in her remains, the charge of murder will be added to your crimes. Lady Wu's face went white. For the first time, I saw true terror in her eyes. She had not expected this. She had not expected me to go this far. The trial lasted for 3 days. Witness after witness came forward. The pawnshop merchant testified that Lin Bao had been selling stolen goods for months. The monks from the temple confirmed that the jade figurines had been taken by him. The servants testified to Lady Wu's cruelty and greed. By the end of the 3rd day, the verdict was clear. Lady Wu was convicted of theft, embezzlement, and attempted murder. She was sentenced to life in prison, stripped of her titles and wealth. Lin Bao was convicted of theft and receiving stolen goods. He was sentenced to exile, banished from the city for life. I watched them being led away, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No triumph. Just a cold, hollow emptiness. The revenge I had dreamed of for so long was finally here, and it tasted like ashes. That night, I sat in my mother's study and wept. The tears came from somewhere deep inside me, a place I had locked away for too long. I cried for my mother, who had died alone and betrayed. I cried for the girl I had been, the girl who had trusted the wrong people and lost everything. I cried for the life I had lived and the life I would never have again. Steward Zhang found me there, sitting on the floor with my head in my hands. He did not say anything. He just sat down beside me and waited. I did it, I said, my voice muffled. I won. But why does it feel like I lost? Zhang was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, because you have been carrying the weight of the dead for too long. You have been fighting a battle that should have been fought by others. You have been strong because you had to be. But now the fighting is over. You are allowed to rest. I looked up at him, my vision blurred with tears. But what if I cannot rest? What if I cannot forget what she did? What if I cannot move on? Then you do not move on, he said gently. You move forward. There is a difference. You carry the memory of your mother with you, but you do not let it weigh you down. You honor her by living well, by being happy, by finding joy in the life she gave you. I wiped my eyes and nodded slowly. You are wise, Steward Zhang. I am grateful to have you. He smiled, the first genuine smile I had seen from him in years. I am grateful to serve you, Miss Lin. You are the finest person I have ever known. I rose to my feet, my legs unsteady, but my heart lighter than it had been in weeks. The battle was over. The war was won. Now it was time to rebuild. The weeks that followed were quiet. My father slowly emerged from his grief, taking on the responsibilities of the household once again. The estate was restored to its former prosperity, and the servants no longer whispered in fear. The manor felt like a home again. And I began to heal. I spent my days in the garden, planting flowers that reminded me of my mother. I spent my evenings reading her letters, learning from her wisdom. I spent my nights dreaming of the future, not the past. One evening, my father came to me in the garden. He was carrying a small wooden box, the same one that had held my mother's jewelry. He opened it and revealed a beautiful gold bracelet, set with rubies and pearls. This was your mother's, he said, his voice thick with emotion. She wore it on her wedding day. She wanted you to have it when you came of age. I thought it was lost, but Steward Zhang found it hidden in the vault, beneath a false floor. I took the bracelet and held it in my hands. It was warm, as if it still carried my mother's warmth. I slipped it onto my wrist, and it fit perfectly. She loved you so much, my father said. She would be so proud of you. I am proud of you. I looked up at him, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. A real smile. A smile that reached my eyes. Thank you, Father, I said. Thank you for everything. He pulled me into an embrace, and I let myself be held. The grief was still there, deep and aching, but it was no longer all-consuming. There was room now for hope, for joy, for life. I walked back to my chamber that night, the gold bracelet warm on my wrist. The sky was clear, the stars bright and endless. I looked up at them, and I felt my mother's presence in the gentle breeze, in the rustling leaves, in the quiet peace of the night. I was free. I was alive. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was ready to live. The peace did not last. I should have known it would not. In my first life, I had learned that happiness was a fragile thing, easily shattered by the cruelty of others. But I had allowed myself to hope. I had allowed myself to believe that the nightmare was over. I was wrong. It started with a letter. A simple, unassuming letter delivered by a messenger in plain gray robes. The seal on the envelope was unfamiliar, a crimson crest I had never seen before. I opened it in my mother's study, the morning light streaming through the window, and I felt the warmth drain from my body as I read the words. Lady Wu had escaped. The letter was from the magistrate, apologizing profusely for the failure of his guards. She had been transferred to a prison in the capital for her final sentencing, and somewhere along the journey, she had slipped away. Her guards had been found bound and gagged in a ditch. Her tracks had been lost in the mountains. She was gone. I read the letter 3 times, my hands shaking, my vision blurring with rage and fear. She had escaped. The snake had slithered out of her cage, and now she was out there, somewhere, planning her revenge. I crumpled the letter in my fist and threw it across the room. The anger surged through me, hot and blinding. I had won. I had defeated her. And now she was free to destroy everything I had rebuilt. I ran to my father's study, my heart pounding. He was reading the same letter, his face ashen, his hands trembling. "We're," he said, his voice breaking. "We must leave. We must go somewhere safe. She will come for us." "She will, father. Calm down," I said, forcing my voice to be steady. "We cannot run. If we run, she wins. We must stay and fight." "Fight," he laughed, a hollow, desperate sound. "How can we fight? She has allies. She has resources. She has nothing to lose. We are not safe here. We will never be safe." I reached out and took his hand. "We are safe because we have the truth. We have the law. We have the magistrate. She is a fugitive now. She cannot show her face in public. She cannot access her wealth. She is powerless." He shook his head slowly. "You do not know her like I do. She is cunning. She is ruthless. She will find a way to strike at us, even from the shadows." I wanted to argue, but I knew he was right. Lady Wu was not a woman who accepted defeat. She would fight until her last breath, and she would not care who she destroyed in the process. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with possibilities. Where would she go? What would she do? Who would she turn to for help? I thought about her brother, the gambling addict she had been supporting with stolen funds. I thought about her network of merchants and officials, the ones she had charmed and bribed over the years. I thought about Lin Bao, exiled and bitter, desperate to regain his lost status. And then I thought about the one person she hated more than anyone else. Me. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. If Lady Wu wanted to destroy me, she would need allies. And if she could not find allies, she would create them. I had seen her manipulate people before. I had seen her twist lies into truth and hatred into loyalty. She was a master of deception, and I was her greatest enemy. The next morning, I sent Steward Zhang to the city to gather information. I needed to know if anyone had seen Lady Wu. I needed to know if she had contacted her old allies. I needed to know what she was planning. Zhang returned late that night, his face grim. "Miss Lin, I have news. Lady Wu has been seen in the East Market, disguised as a merchant's wife. She was asking questions about you." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What kind of questions?" "She wanted to know about your daily routine. When you leave the manor. Where you go. Who you speak to." Zhang paused, his eyes dark with concern. "She is watching you, Miss Lin. She is waiting for an opportunity." I forced myself to stay calm. "Then we will not give her an opportunity. I will stay inside the manor. I will not go anywhere alone. I will not." "Miss Lin," Zhang interrupted, his voice urgent. "There is more. She has been seen meeting with a group of men. Mercenaries, I think. They are not from the city. They are rough, dangerous men. They look like they have been hired." The air left my lungs. Mercenaries. She had hired mercenaries to kill me. She was not just planning to destroy my reputation or steal my wealth. She was planning to end my life. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles white. "We must go to the magistrate. We must. The magistrate cannot protect you from mercenaries, Miss Lin. They will not obey the law. They do not care about warrants or arrests. They are paid to do a job, and they will do it." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I could not afford to panic. I could not afford to let fear control me. I had survived death once. I could survive it again. "Zhang," I said, opening my eyes. "I need you to hire our own guards. Trustworthy men. Men who will protect this household with their lives. I will pay them well." "I will, Miss Lin. I have already taken the liberty of hiring a few men," Zhang said, a hint of pride in his voice. "They are outside now, watching the gates. They are loyal to you, not to any coin. I have known them for years." I felt a surge of gratitude so powerful it brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you, Zhang. You have saved us." He bowed. "I am only doing my duty, Miss Lin. I will not let her hurt you. I will not let her hurt this family." The next few days were tense. I stayed inside the manor, moving only between my chamber, my father's study, and the garden. The guards were always nearby, their eyes scanning the shadows, their hands never far from their weapons. But the tension was unbearable. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind, every distant shout made my heart leap into my throat. I was a prisoner in my own home, and I hated it. One evening, I was sitting in the garden, trying to read, when one of the guards approached me. "Miss Lin," he said, his voice low. "There is someone at the gate. A woman. She says she has information for you. She will not give her name." My heart skipped a beat. "Is she alone?" "Yes, Miss Lin. She seems unarmed. She looks frightened." I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Bring her to me." The guard escorted a woman into the garden. She was young, perhaps 20, with a thin face and haunted eyes. Her robes were plain and dirty, as if she had been traveling for days. She fell to her knees before me, her hands clasped together. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "Please, you must help me. I know where Lady Wu is hiding. I know what she is planning. Please, I will tell you everything, but you must protect me." I reached down and helped her to her feet. "Tell me your name," I said gently. "May," she said. "I was a servant in Lady Wu's household. I saw everything. I know about the mercenaries. I know about the plan. I know about—" She stopped, her face pale. "I know about the poison." The word hung in the air like a curse. "Poison," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "She has hired an assassin," May said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "He is a master of poisons. He is going to slip it into your tea. He is going to kill you the same way she killed your mother." I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. "How do you know this?" "Because I was there," May said, tears streaming down her face. "I heard her give the order. She said she wanted you to suffer the way she had suffered. She said she wanted you to die slowly, in agony, just like your mother. She is insane, Miss Lin. She is completely insane." I forced myself to breathe. I forced myself to think. The poison. The assassin. The tea. Lady Wu had tried to kill me before, and she had failed. Now she was trying again, using the same weapon she had used on my mother. But I was not my mother. I was not a naive, trusting girl who would drink whatever was placed before her. I was a survivor. I had already died once. I would not die again. "May," I said, my voice steady. "I need you to tell me everything you know. Where is she hiding? Who is the assassin? How did she find him?" May took a deep breath and began to speak. Her story was chilling. Lady Wu had escaped from the prison transport with the help of a corrupt guard, a man she had bribed years ago. She had fled to a remote village in the mountains, where she had been hiding in a small cottage owned by her brother. From there, she had sent messages to her old allies, calling in debts and favors. She had hired the mercenaries to create chaos, to distract the household while the assassin slipped in and delivered the poison. The assassin, May said, was a man named Jean. He was a shadow, a ghost. No one knew his true face. He had killed dozens of people, all of them wealthy merchants and officials, all of them poisoned in their own homes. He was the best in the business, and he was coming for me. "Jean will not fail," May said, her voice trembling. "Lady Wu paid him a fortune. He has a reputation to uphold. He will find a way to get to you, no matter how many guards you have." I stared at her, my mind racing. The poison. The assassin. The mercenaries. Lady Wu had planned this with meticulous care. She had thought of everything. But she had not thought of May. "You have been brave to come here," I said, taking her hands. "You have saved my life. I will not forget this. You will stay here, in the manor, where it is safe. No one will hurt you." May burst into tears, her body shaking with relief. "Thank you, Miss Lin. Thank you. I have been so afraid. I did not know where else to go. I knew you were the only one who could help me." I pulled her into an embrace, holding her tightly. "You are safe now. I promise." That night, I gathered my father and Steward Zhang in the study. May told her story again, her voice stronger this time, more confident. My father listened in stunned silence, his face growing paler with every word. "An assassin," he whispered. She has hired an assassin to kill my daughter. We will not let him succeed, I said, my voice firm. We know about the poison. We know about the plan. We can prepare. We can trap him. Zhang nodded slowly. It is risky, Miss Lin. Jean is no ordinary assassin. He is a professional. If he suspects a trap, he will not come. He will wait. He will strike when we least expect it. Then we must make him think we are not expecting it, I said. We must play the role of the frightened, helpless family. We must make him believe that we have no idea he is coming. My father looked at me, his eyes filled with fear. And then what do we do when he arrives? I smiled, a cold, hard smile. Then we kill him. The plan was simple. I would continue my usual routine, pretending that nothing was wrong. I would walk in the garden, drink my tea, and sleep in my chamber. But the tea would be replaced with a harmless herbal mixture, and my chamber would be guarded by Zhang's men. The moment Jean showed his face, we would strike. The waiting was the hardest part. Every day, I went through the motions of my life, smiling at the servants, reading in the study, tending to the flowers in the garden. But inside, I was a coiled spring, ready to snap. 3 days passed. Then 5. Then a week. I began to wonder if May had been wrong. Perhaps Jean had abandoned the mission. Perhaps Lady Wu had been caught. Perhaps it happened on the 8th night. I was in my chamber, preparing for bed, when I heard a soft sound. A whisper of fabric. A breath of air. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I had left the window open just a crack, as I always did. It was part of the trap. I turned slowly, my hand reaching for the small dagger hidden beneath my pillow. A shadow moved in the corner of the room. It was tall and lean, barely visible in the dim moonlight. I could not see the man's face, but I could feel his eyes on me, cold and predatory. Miss Lin, he said, his voice a low, rasping whisper. I have been waiting for this moment. Have you? I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. I have been waiting for it too. He stepped forward, a thin blade gleaming in his hand. Your stepmother sends her regards. She wanted you to know that you will die slowly, just like your mother. She wanted you to suffer. Then she should have come herself, I said, and I slammed my hand against the wooden panel on the wall. The trap was sprung. The floor beneath the assassin's feet gave way, and he fell into the pit that Zhang's men had dug beneath my chamber. I heard his scream, sharp and brief, followed by the heavy thud of his body hitting the bottom. I walked to the edge of the pit and looked down. Jean lay at the bottom, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle. He was alive, but barely. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with shock and disbelief. How did you know? He gasped. I know everything, I said. I know about the poison. I know about the mercenaries. I know about Lady Wu's plan. You were never going to surprise me. Zhang's men appeared in the doorway, their torches lighting up the room. They dragged Jean from the pit, his screams echoing through the manor. My father rushed in, his face pale with fear. Where? Are you hurt? Are you? I am fine, father, I said, taking his hand. The trap worked. The assassin is captured. He stared at me, his eyes wide with awe. You are remarkable, he said. You have saved us all. I shook my head. We saved us all. This was not my victory alone. It was yours and Zhang's and May's. We did this together. But even as I spoke the words, I knew the battle was not over. Lady Wu was still out there, hiding in the mountains, plotting her next move. She would not stop until I was dead. And I would not stop until she was. I walked to the window and looked out at the dark, silent garden. Somewhere out there, my stepmother was waiting. Somewhere out there, the final confrontation was brewing. I was ready for it. I had faced death twice now, and I had won both times. I would win again. I would win because I had to. I had a life to live. I had a legacy to protect. I had a mother to honor. And I had a battle to finish. The night after we captured Jean, I did not sleep. I sat in my mother's study, the gold bracelet warm on my wrist, and I stared at the wall. The hollow brick where I had hidden the keys and the dowry registry was still there, but it was empty now. The secrets had been revealed. The weapons had been used. And yet, the war was not over. May found me just before dawn. She looked fragile, her face pale, her hands trembling. But there was something in her eyes that I had not seen before. Determination. The same fire that burned in my own chest. Miss Lin, she said, her voice soft but steady. I have been thinking. Lady Wu will not stop. She will keep sending assassins, keep plotting, keep trying to destroy you. There is only one way to end this. I looked up at her. What do you mean? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. You must go to her. You must confront her directly. She is hiding in her brother's cottage in the mountains. I know the way. I can take you there. My heart skipped a beat. The thought of facing Lady Wu alone, in her own territory, was terrifying. But Mei was right. As long as she was out there, I would never be safe. I would never be free. You are sure? I asked. You can find the cottage. I lived there for 3 years, Mei said. I know every path, every hiding spot, every secret. I can get you in without her knowing. I took a deep breath. The decision felt monumental, like a door swinging open onto an unknown world. But I had already walked through that door once, when I had died in the gutter. I had walked through it again when I had woken up on the cold stone floor. I could walk through it one more time. Then we go tomorrow, I said. At dawn. Tell no one. Mei nodded and slipped out of the study. I sat alone in the darkness, my heart pounding, my mind racing. I was about to walk into the lion's den. I was about to face my greatest enemy alone. But I was not afraid. I had been afraid for too long. It was time to be brave. I spent the rest of the night preparing. I packed a small bag with food, water, and a change of clothes. I hid the dagger in my sleeve. I wrote a letter to my father, explaining what I was doing and why. I did not ask for his permission. I did not ask for his blessing. I simply told him the truth. At dawn, Mei and I slipped out of the manor through the servants' gate. The guards were still asleep, their heads nodding against the wall. The streets were empty, the city still wrapped in the gray mist of early morning. We walked for hours, following narrow paths through the hills and forests. Mei moved with the ease of someone who had traveled this route 1,000 times. I followed, my legs aching, my lungs burning. By midday, we reached the foothills of the mountains. The cottage was hidden in a small valley, surrounded by dense trees and rocky outcroppings. It was a simple building, made of gray stone and faded wood. Smoke rose from the chimney, curling into the pale sky. She is inside, Mei whispered. I can see the smoke. She is there. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. Mei grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Wait, she said. There are guards. I can see them. 2 of them, by the front door. They will not let you pass. I had expected that. Lady Wu was paranoid, desperate. She would not leave herself unprotected. But I had not come this far to turn back. I will handle the guards, I said. You stay here. If I do not come out by sunset, go back to the manor and tell my father what happened. Mei's eyes widened. Miss Lin, you cannot. I can, I said, pulling my arm free. I must. This is my fight. I will finish it. I walked toward the cottage, my steps steady, my heart calm. The guards saw me almost immediately. They were rough men, their faces scarred, their hands resting on the hilts of their swords. Stop, one of them shouted. Who are you? What do you want? I did not answer. I kept walking, my eyes fixed on the door. The guard drew his sword, stepping forward to block my path. I stopped and looked him in the eye. I am Lin Hui, I said, my voice clear and cold. I am here to see my stepmother. Step aside, or I will make you step aside. The guard laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. You a little girl, you cannot make me do anything. I reached into my sleeve and pulled out the dagger. I had never used it on a living person, but the weight of it in my hand felt right. Natural. I said, step aside, I repeated. I will not ask again. The guard lunged at me, his sword swinging. I had expected that too. I had been training with Zhang's men for weeks, learning to dodge, to parry, to strike. I sidestepped the blow and drove my dagger into his arm. He screamed, dropping his sword, and stumbled backward. The second guard rushed me, but I was ready. I ducked under his swing and kicked his legs out from under him. He fell hard, his head cracking against the ground. I stepped over their bodies and pushed open the cottage door. The interior was dark and dusty, filled with the smell of smoke and decay. Lady Wu sat at a small table in the center of the room, a cup of tea in her hands. She looked up as I entered, and for a moment, I saw something like surprise flicker across her face. Then she smiled. It was the same smile she had worn on the day she had asked me for the keys. Sweet. Innocent. Deadly. Lin Hui, she said, her voice calm. I was wondering when you would come. I stepped forward, my dagger still in my hand. Did you really think you could hide from me? Stepmother, did you really think I would let you destroy my family? She set down her tea and rose to her feet. She was thinner than I remembered, her face gaunt, her eyes hollow. The months of hiding had taken their toll. But there was still fire in her gaze. Still hatred. Destroy your family, she laughed, a bitter, broken sound. I was trying to save my own. I was trying to give my son a future. A life. But you took that away from me. You ruined everything. I ruined nothing, I said. You did that to yourself. You stole. You lied. You murdered. And now you will pay for your crimes. She stepped closer, her hands clenched at her sides. You think you are so righteous, so pure, you are just like your mother. Weak. Naive. You trusted me once, and I used that trust to destroy you. I can do it again. I met her gaze without flinching. You can try. But you will fail. You have already failed. Your assassin is in prison. Your mercenaries have fled. Your son is in exile. You have nothing left. Her face twisted with rage. I have you, she hissed. I have you right here in my home with no one to protect you. I will kill you, Lin Hui. I will watch the light leave your eyes, and I will dance on your grave. She lunged at me, her fingers reaching for my throat. I stepped back, raising the dagger, but she was faster than I expected. She grabbed my wrist, twisting it hard, forcing me to drop the weapon. It clattered to the floor, and she kicked it away. Now you are defenseless, she said, her breath hot on my face. Now you are nothing. I looked into her eyes, and I saw the madness there. The desperation. The hatred. She was beyond reason, beyond mercy. She was a cornered animal, and she would fight to the death. Kill me, then, I said, my voice steady. Kill me, and prove to everyone that you are the monster I always knew you were. She hesitated. Just for a moment. But it was enough. I reached into my sleeve and pulled out the small silk pouch I had hidden there. The arsenic. The poison she had intended for my father. I opened it and threw the powder into her face. She screamed, stumbling backward, clawing at her eyes. The powder burned, blinding her, filling her lungs with its toxic dust. She collapsed to the ground, gasping, writhing in agony. I stood over her, watching her suffer. The hatred was still there, simmering beneath the surface. But so was something else. Something that felt like pity. You were right about one thing, stepmother, I said, my voice soft. You were a survivor. You did what you had to do to survive. But survival is not enough. It is not a life. It is just a longer death. She did not answer. She could not answer. Her body went still, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. I walked out of the cottage and into the sunlight. May was waiting for me, her face pale with fear. Miss Lin, are you all right? What happened? She is dead, I said. The arsenic. She inhaled it. There was nothing I could do. May stared at me, her eyes wide. You killed her, I shook my head. I gave her a choice. She chose to fight. She lost. We buried her in the forest, in a shallow grave marked only by a pile of stones. I did not say any words over her. I did not mourn her. I simply walked away. The journey back to the manor was long and silent. May did not speak, and I did not want to speak. I was exhausted, my body aching, my mind numb. The battle was over. The war was won. But I did not feel victorious. I felt empty. When we finally reached the manor, my father was waiting at the gate. He rushed toward me, his face a mask of terror and relief. Huir, I thought you were dead. I am fine, father, I said, letting him pull me into an embrace. The nightmare is over. Lady Wu is dead. She will never hurt us again. He held me tightly, his body shaking with sobs. I was so afraid. I could not bear to lose you. You are all I have left. I closed my eyes and let myself be held. The grief was still there, deep and aching. But so was something else. Something that felt like hope. The weeks that followed were quiet. The manor returned to its former peace. The servants no longer whispered in fear. My father began to heal, slowly, day by day. And I began to rebuild my life. I spent my days in the garden, planting flowers that reminded me of my mother. I spent my evenings reading her letters, learning from her wisdom. I spent my nights dreaming of the future, not the past. One evening, my father came to me in the garden. He was carrying a small wooden box, the same one that had held my mother's jewelry. He opened it and revealed a beautiful gold bracelet, set with rubies and pearls. This was your mother's, he said, his voice thick with emotion. She wore it on her wedding day. She wanted you to have it when you came of age. I thought it was lost, but Steward Zhang found it hidden in the vault, beneath a false floor. I took the bracelet and held it in my hands. It was warm, as if it still carried my mother's warmth. I slipped it onto my wrist, and it fit perfectly. She loved you so much, my father said. She would be so proud of you. I am proud of you. I looked up at him, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. A real smile. A smile that reached my eyes. Thank you, father, I said. Thank you for everything. He pulled me into an embrace, and I let myself be held. The grief was still there, deep and aching, but it was no longer all-consuming. There was room now for hope. For joy. For life. I walked back to my chamber that night, the gold bracelet warm on my wrist. The sky was clear, the stars bright and endless. I looked up at them, and I felt my mother's presence in the gentle breeze, in the rustling leaves, in the quiet peace of the night. I was free. I was alive. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was ready to live. But the journey was not over. There were still shadows in my heart, still fears I had not faced. I had survived death, betrayal, and loss. I had defeated my enemies and reclaimed my legacy. But the deepest battle was yet to come. The battle for my own soul. I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling, the gold bracelet glinting in the moonlight. I thought about my mother and the life she had wanted for me. I thought about my father and the future he was trying to rebuild. I thought about myself and the woman I had become. I was no longer the frightened girl who had died in the gutter. I was no longer the naive child who had trusted her stepmother. I was a survivor. A fighter. A woman who had clawed her way back from the brink of death and refused to let go of life. But I was also tired. So tired. The weight of 2 lifetimes pressed down on me, heavy and unrelenting. I had carried it for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to be light. I closed my eyes and let the tears flow. They were not tears of sadness. They were tears of release. Of letting go. Of finally, truly, moving on. The night was long, but the dawn came eventually. I woke to the sound of birds singing in the garden, the sunlight streaming through my window. I felt different. Lighter. As if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I rose from my bed and walked to the window. The garden was beautiful, filled with the flowers I had planted. The koi pond shimmered in the morning light. The world was alive, vibrant, full of possibility. And so was I. I dressed in my finest robe, a deep green silk embroidered with silver flowers. I pinned my hair with the jade dragon pins I had recovered from the pawn shop. I slipped the gold bracelet onto my wrist. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, and I smiled. I was ready. Ready to live. Ready to love. Ready to embrace the life I had been given a second chance to live. I walked down the stairs and into the courtyard. My father was waiting for me, his face bright with hope. May was there, her eyes filled with gratitude. Steward Zhang stood at the gate, his head bowed in respect. They were my family. The family I had fought for. The family I had saved. Good morning, father, I said, my voice steady and warm. He smiled, a genuine smile, the first one I had seen from him in years. Good morning, Huir. It is a beautiful day. I looked up at the sky, clear and blue, and I felt my mother's presence in the warmth of the sun, in the gentle breeze, in the quiet peace of the moment. It is a beautiful day, I agreed. And it is only the beginning. I stepped forward, into the sunlight, into the future. The past was behind me. The war was over. The life I had been given was mine to live. And I would live it fully. Completely. Without fear. I was Lin Hui, daughter of the first wife, heir to my mother's legacy. I had died once, and I had been reborn. I had fought, and I had won. And now I was ready to begin. The end.